Hey, chosen soul, pause for a second. Just breathe, really breathe. Let your fingers rest. Let your thoughts settle. This isn't just some background noise or another spiritual video playing in the background. This is personal. Something sacred is reaching out, calling your name. And here's the thing, you've got 45 minutes. Not a metaphor. A real divine moment is unfolding, and a door in the unseen world is about to either open wide or close for good. You can feel it, can't you? The air feels different. Something is shifting, and it's not just energy. It's heaven moving. This message didn't just show up on your feed by chance. It fought through noise, distractions, your busy schedule, and the enemy's traps just to land in front of you. Why? Because something's happening that directly affects your path forward. A divine plan is being unwrapped right now, and this moment, this exact one, is heaven's way of checking in. Are you aligned? Are you standing in your purpose? Or are you still telling yourself you've got time to figure it all out? You've felt it, that weird feeling in your chest, like pressure, but not panic. The restlessness that doesn't go away, even when you're still. That's not anxiety. That's not random. It's spiritual resonance. It's the frequency of heaven knocking on your soul's door. God isn't asking you to be perfect. He's asking you to pay attention. Because this time, if you look away, if you dismiss this moment, it won't come back the same. What's before you now is rare, sacred, a fragile, holy 45-minute window where something can either be unlocked or delayed again. Let's be honest. You begged for this. You asked God for a sign, for something clear, something unmistakable, and now here it is. This moment is your confirmation, but it's up to you whether you keep scrolling past your own answered prayer. Remember what Jesus said, "He who has ears, let him hear." This is that kind of moment. Isaiah once wrote, "Before they even speak, I will answer." Well, he's answering, right now. Someone is saying your name in rooms you haven't entered yet. A door is opening, but your obedience is the key. There's a breakthrough hovering, so close it's brushing your fingertips, but it's waiting on you. Not your effort, your alignment. The Spirit is whispering right now, if they don't move, they'll miss it. So if you're feeling that inner shake, that pull deep in your chest that says, "This is for me," then don't hesitate. Type it out, 777, as a spiritual yes. Not for attention, not for the algorithm, but to mark this moment. To say, God, I hear you. I'm listening. I'm ready. This isn't for show. It's your sacred signal. To every soul who's prayed with us, stood beside us, or quietly supported this mission, even just by whispering, yes, in secret, please hear this from my heart. Thank you. What you've done isn't small. It's not just generosity. It's prophecy in motion. You've been helping build altars in a digital wilderness. Every seed you've sown, every unseen offering, every prayer you've whispered under your breath, it's all been recorded in heaven's archive. And yet, the most important part of this message is still ahead. The part that explains the silence. The part that makes sense of the pain. Don't tune out now. What you're about to hear might finally give language to the battle you've been fighting in silence. There's a war happening that you didn't start, but it's pulling at you like gravity. The betrayal, the delays, the closed doors that made no sense. You've been waiting, hoping, aching, and now the countdown has begun. Not just any message is coming. What's on its way is a spiritual covering, armor you didn't even know you needed. This is about protection, positioning, alignment. And yes, it's urgent, because this moment isn't coming back around in the same way. This is divine strategy unfolding in real time. Are you going to hear it? Or will you scroll past what was always meant to find you? There's a weight in the air around you right now. A holy presence, constant and near, closer than time, closer than breath. But hidden in that presence is a truth you haven't been ready to face. Someone close to you has worn loyalty like a mask. Their silence has screamed louder than their words ever could. And tonight, heaven is lifting the veil. Whether it's a slip of the tongue, a dream that lands like thunder, or a look that finally says too much, the truth is coming. And when it does, remember this: It's not a coincidence. It's divine timing. God has declared, no more delay. You've felt it, haven't you? That strange unease you couldn't shake. Like your soul has been pacing, even when your body is still. The sudden rushes of discomfort, waves of quiet warning in the middle of ordinary days. That's not your imagination. That's the Holy Spirit doing what He always does before a storm. He warns. Scripture says God does nothing without revealing it to His servants first. So if you've been feeling the shift, the tension, the trembling, it's not because you're paranoid. It's because you're trusted. Heaven is not silent. It's sounding the alarm in a voice only your spirit can hear. Let me tell you about Elena, an interior designer in Lisbon. She gave everything, her time, her heart, her home, to someone she called friend, but that friend forged her name in betrayal. The crazy part? Elena felt it coming. She had that gut sense, that spiritual knowing, but she silenced it. She second-guessed herself. Have you been doing that too? Dismissing your intuition, your discernment, your holy warning bells? Think of Samson, called from birth, destined by God, yet undone by misplaced trust. He gave away something sacred, something meant for God alone, and in that moment of surrender, he lost more than his strength. He lost his sight. Anthony Ray Hinton spent 3 decades on death row for a crime he didn't commit, put there, not by screaming enemies, but by people who smiled and shook his hand while quietly watching him fall. Sometimes the blade isn't swung by those who hate you, it's polished by those who say they're on your side. His release was a miracle, yes, but the deeper story is this. God used the years of hidden suffering to carve an authority in His voice that no courtroom could cancel. When He speaks now, chains fall off other people. That's what redemption looks like when heaven takes the microphone. So guard your gates, emotional, spiritual, relational. Love builds up. Deception only takes notes. Real loyalty covers. Counterfeit loyalty calculates. Jesus warned us, don't toss sacred pearls to dogs or pigs, or they'll trample the treasure and tear you apart. That wasn't shade. That was strategy. You're carrying holy fire. Not everyone knows how to hold it without getting burned. Discernment isn't judgment. It's spiritual survival. Matteo, a violinist from Prague, once sighed, they played harmony in public but practiced dissonance in private. Sound familiar? Some people mirror your light while hiding motives that grind against your spirit. Even roses grow thorns for a reason. Not everyone who walks through your garden is there to water the roots. Protect what God planted. Boundaries aren't barriers to love, they're fences that keep predators out. Picture volcanic soil, looks barren on top, but beneath lies molten power waiting to erupt. Some folks carry that same hidden lava of betrayal, calm surface, catastrophic core. They stroll beside you like peacemakers, yet pressure is building, ready to blow if you don't discern the signs. So keep your oil safe, keep your peace guarded. That overthinking you worry about might just be holy discernment in work boots. And yes, God knows exactly how long you've waited, how many disappointments you swallowed to keep the peace. He counted every tear that slipped through your forced smiles. Why do you think your heart keeps looping back to kindness instead of bitterness? That isn't weakness. That's sacred strength. Scripture says those who sow with tears will reap songs of joy. Leora, a school custodian in rural Maine, prayed over empty desks each night. 15 years later, one of those kids, now a global speaker, found her and said, "I always felt safe in that room. I think it was your prayers." Heaven keeps receipts on every hidden sacrifice, and the payoff is never small. How many spaces have you blessed without being seen? How many lives have shifted because you dared to believe in quiet, in the dark, when no one clapped? That's not weakness. That's consecrated faith. You've always carried something holy. That's why you've never fit into rooms built on performance. That's why your silence unsettled those addicted to noise. You weren't misunderstood because you were wrong. You were set apart. And now, the atmosphere is responding to you before you even speak. That's not pride. That's anointing. Your presence has started to echo before your words arrive, and it's because heaven's oil is finally rising to the surface. Just like David was anointed while others overlooked him, your calling didn't start in some grand palace moment. It started in the backfields, in obscurity, in the forgotten places. That oil, the one you carried while everyone else was chosen first, it wasn't wasted. It was stored. And now it's speaking for you in places your feet haven't touched yet. Oprah once said, "What God has for you is greater than what anyone can take from you." That's not just a quote, it's a map. What looked like rejection was redirection. That closed door, God rerouted you to the one no one could shut. Right now, heaven is aligning what felt scattered. That door you thought would never open again. It's cracking, not because you forced it or faked it, but because you surrendered. You've been asking, "God, do you still see me?" This is your answer. Loud, divine, unmistakable. This moment isn't random. It's the echo of every prayer you whispered when no one answered. Revelation says, "I have set before you an open door no man can shut." You didn't miss it. You were just being prepared for it. So now, chosen one, are you ready to walk through the door your pain prepared? Can you imagine standing in front of the very ones who thought you were finished and shining? Because what's coming isn't applause. It's appointment. It's not compensation for what you lost. It's coronation for what you carried. Like the aloe plant that blooms in brutal conditions, your quiet season was never punishment. It was preparation. The deeper the roots went during drought, the more healing was stored in its leaves. You too have been storing strength in silence. But you can't miss this window. There's a timestamp on this unfolding. Spiritually speaking, you don't have forever. You've got this moment, not because God is confined by time, but because you've been positioned in it. Delayed obedience is still disobedience. What are you waiting for? Could this be the moment everything shifts? Could the timing be so precise that hesitation would cost you alignment? This isn't about fear. It's about posture. Are you alert? Are you surrendered? Or are you still hoping for a louder sign? Because heaven is watching what you choose next. Some paths are too sacred to walk with divided attention. Some choices carry a weight your heart can feel long before your mind catches up. Don't let the subtlety of this moment fool you. What you choose right now is echoing far beyond what you can see. The enemy has already deployed strategies. Not all of them will come in obvious forms. Some show up dressed as opportunity. Others speak in soft tones that sound like support. But their aim is to steer you even slightly off course. Not all light is holy. Some of it blinds you just enough to miss the truth. That's why discernment is essential. Deception often arrives looking like a miracle. And if your spirit isn't trained to listen, you'll mistake manipulation for alignment. Think of Jonah Miles, a startup founder from Colorado. He was offered a high-stakes investor deal right in the middle of a critical season of spiritual formation. On paper, it was perfect. But something didn't sit right. He fasted, prayed, waited. Days later, the investor was exposed for laundering money through early-stage businesses. Jonah said, "I was ready to say yes, but obedience whispered no, and saved my life." What is obedience whispering to you right now? Or look at Justin Bieber. He had everything the world says you should want: fame, fortune, attention. But in the middle of all that noise, he started feeling the cracks. He realized not every stage was meant to carry his soul. So he stepped back. He walked away from contracts, canceled tours, and rededicated his life to Christ. The world was confused, but heaven wasn't. He said, "My calling wasn't just to perform, it was to serve." That wasn't weakness. That was wisdom. And maybe what you've been calling rejection has actually been divine redirection too. Are you mourning doors God never intended to open? Still chasing connections heaven already removed? Scripture warns us not to be taken captive by empty, deceptive philosophy. Not every path is paved with purpose just because it looks polished. Jesus himself was tempted in the wilderness, not with pain, but with promises. Glory, kingdoms, provision, all at the cost of a single compromised decision. How many blessings have been delayed in your life by counterfeit comfort? You're not under attack because you're weak. You're under attack because what you carry is heavy. The battle isn't heating up because you're failing. It's intensifying because what's on the other side of this moment is too sacred to leave unguarded. That inner tension, the one tugging at your spirit, making you feel like everything's shifting. That's not confusion. That's confirmation. The enemy can't destroy your purpose, so he's trying to discourage you out of it. He'll distract you with busyness, seduce you with ease, drain you with doubt, numb you with routine. But if you recognize the scheme, you can rise instead of retreat. Think about the queen of the night cactus. It blooms only once in the darkness, for just a few quiet hours. No spotlight, no warning, just a sacred, fleeting moment under the moon before the petals close forever. That's what divine timing looks like. Silent, holy, and easy to miss if you're waiting for a more convenient hour. If you're distracted, you'll miss the bloom. But if you're still, if your soul is awake, you'll witness a glory few are positioned to see. The path ahead isn't just another step forward. It's sacred ground. The timing is divine. The responsibility? Yours. God is preparing to place peace where you've only known pain. Can you picture it? Waking up in the same space where sorrow once swallowed you, only now joy is blooming where the grief used to live. In the same room where you wept. The calm in the very place where your breath once trembled. It's here. The shift has started. But you must not return to what God removed. That text you want to send. That door you're tempted to knock on again. That person who keeps circling your mind like a ghost dressed in nostalgia. They are not your future. Don't go back just because it feels familiar. His removal wasn't punishment. It was protection. How many times has he had to drag you out of what looked good on the surface but was draining your soul underneath? Isaiah said, "Forget the former things. Do not dwell on the past. See, I am doing a new thing." But how can God begin the new if you keep rebuilding the old? Let me tell you about Camille, a jazz pianist from New Orleans. She was offered a major record deal from a label that once mocked her for her faith. It looked like a breakthrough. But every time she entered the studio, her spirit tightened. She couldn't breathe in there. After a sleepless night, she deleted the contract and walked away. A week later, she was asked to join a gospel tour she had dreamed about for years. That's what happens when you say no to the counterfeit. You make space for the promise. And then there's Fantasia Barrino, Grammy winner, former American Idol. The world saw her success. What they didn't see was the breaking, toxic relationships, industry pressure, spiritual exhaustion, until one day she crashed hard. But in that breaking, she turned back to God, not just to rebuild her career, but to reclaim her soul. Now when she sings, it's not just talent, it's testimony. That wasn't career rehab, that was deliverance. What if the discomfort in your life right now isn't random? It's God uprooting everything that can't survive in the place He's leading you next. Don't ignore the subtle discomforts. That tension in your chest when certain people walk into the room. That dream that lingers longer than it should. That gut feeling when someone's voice doesn't match their spirit. What if those aren't coincidences? What if they're whispers from the Holy Spirit nudging you to stay awake? Think of a deer in the forest. It doesn't wait for danger to roar. It listens when the wind shifts. It senses before it sees. You're being trained to do the same. You're not paranoid. You're being refined. What's coming next in your life isn't casual. It's sacred. And sacred things require sacred awareness. Sacred transitions demand sacred separation. Just like autumn trees drop their leaves, not because they're dying, but because they're making space for deeper roots. Your letting go is not a loss. It's preparation. What feels like emptiness is not a void. It's a womb, a holy space for what's about to be born in you. You're not being punished. You're being pruned, and pruning isn't cruelty. It's clarity. Can you let go of what only looked like love? Can you release the thing that gave comfort but stole your peace? You're not being left behind. You're being pulled ahead of the cycle, ahead of the confusion, ahead of the distractions that were dressed as companionship. God isn't just removing what's unaligned. He's replacing it with what is holy, a clean slate, a steady mind, a path shielded by His hand. But He's not asking for perfection. He's asking for presence, for attention. Draw near to me, He says, and I'll draw near to you. So draw near. Don't flinch. Don't retreat into delay. Your next step matters more than ever. Not tomorrow, not later. Right now. This isn't a message to highlight and forget. It's an invitation, a divine summons to wake up and walk. Can you feel it? That soft unlocking in your spirit? That strange weight lifting from your chest? That's not emotion. That's spiritual activation. It's the beginning of something heaven has been preparing for longer than you've known to ask for it. There's a conversation approaching, a truth surfacing, a moment that's been waiting for your alignment, and it's not going to come with fire and thunder. It might be quiet, simple, unexpected. But if your heart isn't open, you'll miss it. That's why heaven pulled you into this moment, why you couldn't scroll past, why something in you leaned in, even if you didn't know why. This isn't fear, it's focus. You're not just listening, you're remembering. You're remembering who you are and why this moment found you exactly when it did. You didn't just stumble into this message, you were drawn, not by accident, by design. Heaven has been orchestrating this encounter from the beginning, waiting until your heart was quiet enough to hear. This isn't about hype, it's about alignment. Something inside you is waking up because you've outgrown the boxes you once fit in. Your voice has become too strong to stay small. Your soul too expanded to shrink into old roles. You can feel it, can't you? That gentle pressure in your spirit saying, I can't live like this anymore. You've carried dreams that no longer fit the life you were surviving in. The desires God planted in you are pressing against the boundaries you used to accept. So now comes the question, will you shrink to preserve their comfort, or will you expand to honor your calling? Let me tell you about Darius, a high school literature teacher who wrote poetry in secret for 20 years. He stayed quiet because everyone expected him to be modest. But one day, a student found one of his poems and submitted it anonymously to a national contest. It won. When interviewed, Darius said, I spent my life editing myself down to make others feel big. Now I'm done shrinking. What have you been editing in yourself to stay acceptable? Consider Letitia Wright, the actress who plays Shuri in Black Panther. At the height of her rising fame, she boldly stood for her faith, even when it cost her roles, even when people mocked her convictions. She said, My foundation is God, and I won't compromise that for anything. That clarity didn't come from comfort. It came from communion. And when you walk in communion, you disturb systems that depend on silence. That's why your quiet obedience makes rooms shift. That's why some people are unsettled around you now. It's not you, it's what you carry. Heaven is calling you to become the version of yourself that no longer begs for belonging. That doesn't settle for halfway love. That doesn't dim just to keep someone else comfortable. This next you, he's unbothered by misunderstanding. She stands in silence and says with full peace, This isn't from God. I'll pass. Yes, there's grief in growing like that. Yes, walking away from what once felt like home can break your heart. And yes, the questions come. What if I lose them? What if I'm alone again? What if obedience costs me everything I thought I wanted? Even Jesus asked if the cup could pass. But then he whispered, Not my will, but yours be done. That wasn't weakness. That was holy strength. And now, you're standing in your own Gethsemane. Maybe not loud, maybe not even visible to others, but the ground is shifting under your feet. Silent, tectonic plates of identity and truth are moving. It may feel like trembling, but it's not a breakdown. It's breakthrough. This pressure isn't punishment. It's preparation. Because what God has formed in you is no longer just potential. It's becoming unstoppable purpose. You are not falling apart. You're falling into place. The shaking you feel isn't chaos. It's alignment. Heaven is rearranging everything around you to reflect what's already awakened within you. You've been refined in silence, stretched in secret, molded without applause. And now, the version of you that stayed faithful in the quiet is stepping forward, not loud, not desperate, but clear. For we are his workmanship, created for good works that were prepared long before this moment. You're not being asked to be fearless. You're being invited to be faithful. God isn't asking you to shout. He's asking you to stand. You're not being pulled away from people, you're being pulled toward purpose. And yes, it will cost you. The righteous are as bold as lions not because they roar, but because they no longer flinch when the world pushes back. Let that boldness rise in you now. Not pride, not defense, just divine clarity. Because walking alone with God will always be better than walking with people who clap for your presence but curse your progress. You know that feeling. When smiles don't match the silence behind your back. When you sense celebration in public but resistance in private. Some who walk beside you are not walking with you. And that's okay. Elevation often requires separation. Not every connection makes it to the next level. Even Lot had to part ways with Abraham before God revealed the next promise. The moment Lot left, God spoke. Some revelations don't come until the crowd thins. Are you willing to let go of what's familiar to receive what's eternal? Let me tell you about Isa, a wedding photographer in Barcelona. She turned down a huge job from a celebrity couple, not because she was afraid, but because her spirit was unsettled. Later, she found out that couple was known for exploiting artists. Her no created space for a project that would bless thousands. What if what you say no to is the doorway to what heaven's been trying to yes into your life? And then there's Jonathan Rumi, the actor who plays Jesus in The Chosen. Before landing that role, he lived close to poverty. He said no to parts that didn't align with his values. He waited when others rushed. And when God moved, it wasn't a whisper. It was a wave. Sometimes silence is the stage heaven builds on. You're not being forgotten. You're being prepared. And when you finally step into what's next, it won't feel like striving. It'll feel like surrender. That's how you'll know it's Him. Can you feel it now? The sacred stillness settling around you like a soft hush before a holy storm? That isn't absence. It's divine anticipation. Just like the tide pulls back before a great wave crashes in, God is gathering momentum. Everything might look calm on the surface, but underneath, something is rising. Glory is on its way to collide with your obedience. And when it does, it won't arrive with noise. It'll come with peace that silences every fear you didn't know you were still carrying. Think of the caterpillar sealed in its cocoon, hidden away from the world. It looks still. It looks like nothing is happening. But transformation is unfolding in every silent second. That's where you've been. Not abandoned. Evolving. Your hidden season hasn't been punishment. It's been preparation. What's been forming inside of you was never meant to be rushed. And now, the layers are thinning. The light is breaking in. You're about to stretch wings you didn't even know you had. But this moment, is your choice. Will you emerge or stay wrapped in what used to keep you safe? What if tomorrow doesn't give you another chance to say yes? What if this isn't just another whisper from heaven, but the whisper, not to test you, but to reveal you? The shift will come softly. A line spoken in passing, a door you didn't knock on, a conversation that drops right into your spirit like a key finding its lock. To others, it might look small, but for you, it will be everything. The release you've been waiting for, not because you finally earned it, but because you're finally aligned. That's how God moves, quietly, precisely, like a note slipped into your spirit when the noise dies down. The confirmation won't always be dramatic. Sometimes it comes in stillness, a breath, a knowing, a moment when your soul finally exhales, like coming up for air after years underwater. You'll know it's from Him, not because of how loud it is, but because of how deeply your spirit rests when it arrives. And yes, He saw how long you waited, not just in time, but in trust. He watched you choose silence over shouting, mercy over revenge, grace when no one returned it. You were never ignored. Heaven recorded every unseen yes, every tear that hit your pillow without a sound, every prayer whispered from a place so raw it didn't even have words. And now the reply is arriving, not just to ease your pain, but to crown your faith. This is the part where everything starts to make sense. The delays, the denials, the nights you wept into the dark wondering if anyone, even God, saw you. He did. Every silent battle, every time you stayed soft in a world that demanded hardness, every moment you showed up with love while carrying heartbreak, none of it was wasted. Heaven has been keeping score, not as punishment, but as promise. Because now, the weight you carried is turning into weight you carry with authority. The same hands that trembled in surrender are about to hold what you once only prayed for. You're not walking back into those old rooms to prove anything. You're not returning to reclaim your value. You're returning as living proof that what God builds in silence, no storm can dismantle. This time you don't have to explain yourself. You don't have to justify why you stayed, why you broke, why you healed. Your light will testify for you. The same people who once overlooked you will pause. Not because you demanded their attention, but because your presence now carries the resonance of someone who's been in the fire and didn't burn. This isn't a motivational speech. This isn't spiritual fluff. This is divine interruption. A holy appointment between you and the one who's been waiting for your yes. Not the hesitant, halfway kind. The kind that says, even if I'm scared, I'll go. Even if I don't see the next step, I'll move. Because that kind of faith moves heaven. That kind of surrender breaks chains. And that kind of clarity doesn't shout. It whispers. It walks in quiet confidence. It doesn't argue for space. It creates it. You are the kind of soul that shakes rooms without saying a word. Not because of charisma, but because of consecration. And that's why the shaking in your life increased. Not because you did something wrong, but because the enemy recognized the awakening before you did. He saw you begin to rise. He heard your prayers in the ashes. He felt your spirit start to breathe again. And so he launched everything, distractions, delays, doubts, to keep you small. But it was too late. You had already whispered yes. And that yes changed everything. Not just for you, but for generations. That simple, trembling agreement activated something ancient. It didn't look powerful at the time. Maybe it felt like a whisper into nothing. But heaven heard it as thunder, the kind that rolls through timelines and cracks open doors no man can shut. You're not in a waiting season anymore. You're in a walking season. Not loops, not circles, not wandering. You don't have to chase it anymore. What's meant for you is being drawn to you, not by effort, but by alignment. Divine love doesn't rush in through desperation. It flows through readiness. It waits until your heart is healed enough to hold it, until your hands are steady enough not to crush what they once clung to in fear. That's why God pulled you out of certain places. That's why He let some connections fall apart, not to punish you, but to clear space for what's real, what's lasting, what's His. Before something new could come, He had to clear the ruins of what you kept trying to rebuild. Think of Tyler Perry, once homeless, sleeping in his car, rejected over and over. But God wasn't asking him to be understood. He was building something that didn't require approval, only obedience. He wrote in silence, dreamed in lack. And now he owns the very stages that once ignored his name. Why? Because he stayed aligned with the one who never stopped watching him in the shadows. You've been trying to explain yourself to people who were never given your blueprint. You've been offering holy things to those without the eyes to recognize their worth. Even Jesus warned us, don't give what's sacred to those who will trample it. Your vision doesn't need validation to be valuable. You don't need to be seen to be significant. Just like Zara, a sculptor who hid her work for years, fearing judgment, until a forgotten sketch in a thrift store frame led to a museum exhibit titled Unearthed Glory. She once whispered, I was waiting for someone to see it through the eyes I prayed for. That's the kind of seeing heaven is preparing for you. You don't have to perform anymore. You were built to shine. Like a lighthouse doesn't shout. It just stands. Even when the storms rage, even when no one looks, it keeps shining. Not for attention, but for purpose. And the one who's meant to see your light, they're already on their way. Drawn not by flash, but by faith. Not by your perfection, but by your presence. You're becoming a beacon, and the ones meant to walk with you will recognize the frequency of your spirit without needing proof. So when this message ends, don't just nod and scroll on. Let it leave a mark. Let it move you. Close your eyes. Say it out loud, not for performance, but as surrender. God, I'm ready. Ready to receive. Ready to let go. ready to believe that everything he promised wasn't just poetic, it was prophetic. And when you say it from deep within, when your soul agrees, something ancient will begin to move in your favor. Not because you earned it, but because you finally aligned with what was written about you all along. This isn't just a good feeling. It's a holy chain reaction. The moment your spirit says yes, fully, without bargaining, without backup plans, heaven begins to shift things that have been stagnant for years. Angels aren't waiting for applause. They're already moving at the sound of your agreement. Doors you used to dream about, they're creaking open, not by force, not by strategy, but by divine appointment. What you thought was lost is being returned. What felt delayed is being accelerated, all because your soul finally said, I trust you. And the one who's meant to walk with you, they're not lost, they're listening. Their spirit has been sensing the same pull, the same stirring. They've been through their own wilderness, walked through their own fire, and when your paths align, it won't feel like striving. It will feel like stillness, that quiet recognition of two lives shaped by the same grace, the same pain, the same God. It won't feel like fantasy, it'll feel like peace. And not the kind you beg to stay, but the kind that settles because it was never meant to leave. So don't walk away now. Don't scroll past what was meant to find you. Don't retreat into the comfort of old stories. You were never made to play small. You were made to carry glory. This isn't just another message. It's your moment. A holy interruption between the creator of time and the soul he formed in eternity. You didn't just arrive here. You were led. If your heart is still engaged, if something inside you keeps leaning in, it's because your spirit recognizes the voice of home. You've spent years in the land of almost chosen, almost healed, almost loved. You've tolerated places that couldn't carry your full weight, roles that required you to shrink. But that ends now. From this moment forward, God is asking you to choose yourself the way He always has, fully, boldly, without apology. No more dimming, no more folding, no more waiting for someone to hand you permission to be whole. Will you keep editing yourself to fit where you've outgrown? Or will you rise into the fullness of who you were always becoming? Think of what you've survived, the storms that tried to drown you, the betrayals designed to shatter you, the grief that nearly swallowed your voice, and yet you're still here, not just standing, but rising, not just breathing, but believing. Your voice still carries power in rooms where others lost theirs. Your light is steady, not because it's never flickered, but because you kept relighting it in the dark. And now, heaven is responding to your endurance, not with pity, but with promise. You're not being rescued, you're being revealed. You've been faithful in silence, and now your silence has become sacred soil. The tears you watered the ground with, they didn't evaporate, they took root, and now the soil remembers. God remembers. Heaven remembers. Everything you thought had vanished in the dark is rising in the light. The bloom doesn't apologize for the drought it survived. It simply opens. That's what's happening in you now. The bloom, the release, the moment when what was hidden is no longer held back. But here's the hard truth. You must stop skipping the messages meant for you. This isn't for someone else. This isn't just inspiration for your notebook. This is the confirmation you begged God for in your lowest hour. You are not next. You are now. That fire inside of you, the one you tried to bury, silence, hide, it's rising again. Not as a flicker, as a blaze. A gift you thought was long gone. A truth you barely dared to believe. And now heaven's asking, will you carry it with confidence, or keep asking for permission to be who you already are? They said you were too much, too emotional, too intense, too soft, too bold. But God says, you are exactly how I made you. Your quirks, your sensitivity, even your shadows. Not one part of you is wasted. Not one scar disqualifies you. In fact, it's through those cracks that His glory shines brightest. Just like Gideon in Judges, he saw himself as the weakest, the least, the overlooked. But God called him mighty before he ever swung a sword. Heaven never labels you based on how others see you. Heaven names you according to what's already alive inside. Let me tell you about Elas, a quiet software engineer who never felt like he belonged in loud spaces, always thoughtful, always holding back, until one day, an idea he developed in secret reshaped the entire user experience of a global app, not because he shouted, but because he stopped diluting his brilliance to seem normal. What are you still muting that heaven's been trying to magnify? Your gentleness, your fire, your ideas, your voice? None of it was meant to be watered down. Viola Davis once said, "You can leave something for people, or you can leave something in people." And she chose the latter. She rose from poverty and pain, not to perform, but to impact. And so can you. What if the very thing they told you to hide is the one thing that's been waiting to set others free? You are not too late, not too strange, not too broken. You are God's design, crafted on purpose, with purpose. And now, heaven is clearing space for every piece of your story to become the doorway through which miracles flow. You were never just meant to survive your story, you were meant to redeem it. Every chapter they tried to erase, every version of you that had to die so the real you could breathe. It's all part of the testimony now. Nothing is wasted in the hands of the author who wrote your name before time began. Even your silence had a voice in heaven. Even your exile had angels watching. Even your brokenness birthed blueprints. You thought you were forgotten, but you were being written into something eternal. Some of the most powerful things God will do through you won't come from the victories. They'll come from the wounds. People aren't healed by your highlight reel. They're healed when they see the scar and realize it didn't stop you. When they hear your voice tremble but still speak truth. When they feel your love after betrayal and know you've chosen mercy instead of bitterness. You're not relatable because you're perfect. You're powerful because you're real. That's what makes your life a holy disruption. You're not here to impress. You're here to impart. When God's breath is on your words, you won't need a stage to shift atmospheres. You could whisper a sentence in the back of a crowded room and still ignite someone's awakening. That's why your process took so long. Why your wilderness lasted longer than theirs. You weren't just being prepared for influence. You were being trusted with substance. The kind that doesn't fade when the applause ends. The kind that burns even when no one is watching. So don't hold back now. Don't tuck your anointing under fear or false humility. This isn't about ego, it's about stewardship. When God gives you light, you don't bury it under shame. You lift it. You let it shine, not to be seen, but so others can see through you, through your healing, through your process, through your still open wounds that glow with grace. You are not disqualified. You're designated. Heaven never second-guessed your worth, and now the angels are leaning in. The scrolls have already been opened. The Spirit is waiting on your next word. Will you stay silent in the face of your own miracle? Or will you speak what you've never said before? I'm ready. That's all it takes. Not perfection, just posture, just openness, just the smallest yes from the deepest place. Because once you say it, not with your lips, but with your life, the earth around you begins to shift. Not metaphorically, literally, because all creation has been groaning, waiting for the sons and daughters of God to rise. And now, it's your turn. You feel that, don't you? That sacred tension in your chest, that pull between fear and fire, that ache that says, this is the moment. You're standing at the edge of something eternal. Not a stage, not a spotlight, a threshold. One step from your old life, one breath away from the version of you that's been forming in the dark, aching to rise. You're not here by mistake. You didn't find this message, it found you. Heaven has orchestrated every detail to bring you to this divine crossroads. And now the only question is, will you step? Not everyone will understand this transformation. Some will try to tether you to the version of you that made them feel comfortable. They'll remind you of who you used to be, what you used to tolerate, how quiet you once stayed. But you don't owe anyone your dimness. You don't have to dilute your light just to be digestible. Those who are called to you will rise to meet your frequency, and those who fall away, that's not loss, that's alignment. You're not losing love, you're losing limitations. The truth is, God didn't bring you this far to blend in. He brought you here to break patterns, to silence generational shame, to walk into rooms and shift atmospheres just by being seated in your full truth. And yes, it will cost you. Obedience always does. But what it unlocks will be so holy, so beyond your understanding, that even your most painful sacrifices will start to make sense. That's the promise. Not ease, but elevation. Not comfort, but communion. You were never meant to follow maps written for someone else's soul. Your path was carved in prayer, your destiny stitched in silence. You carry blueprints heaven never gave to anyone else. That's why comparison feels so violent to your spirit. Because the moment you start measuring your journey by someone else's, you forget that yours was never meant to look like theirs. Your calling has a sound, a shape, a scent, a timing, and it's unique. The moment you honor that, everything aligns. Your joy, your people, your breakthrough. So what now? You breathe, you open, you allow the yes inside you to become louder than every fear. You let the tears come if they need to. You let your knees hit the floor if they must. Because this isn't just another shift, it's a birthing. And birthing never happens without pain, without pressure, without pushing. But oh, the glory on the other side. When the dust settles, and the old breaks off, and the veil lifts, you'll see it. Not just what God has been preparing, but what He's been protecting. You, all along. So now it's here. This sacred stillness, right after the soul says yes. Not out loud, but deep, where real change begins. You feel the trembling, not because you're afraid, but because something ancient just broke open inside of you. Chains you didn't even know were there. Agreements you made with fear, narratives written in survival, all of it, dissolving, and in its place, a stillness, a knowing that you were never forgotten, that this moment was always coming. And now you're not just aware of it, you're awake in it. You're not standing at the edge of possibility. You're standing inside the promise. And with every breath, the atmosphere around you begins to respond to the real you, the unveiled you, the version of you that no longer apologizes for carrying oil, for weeping in worship, for walking away from what everyone else said was good enough. There's no going back now, not because you can't, but because you finally won't. You've seen too much, felt too deep, heard too clearly. Heaven has marked you, and that mark carries weight. And yes, this path will require discernment. Yes, some days you'll want to hide again. But hear this, when God breathes on your name, you don't get to disappear. You rise, you become a living altar, a walking sanctuary, a place where people feel God before you say a word. That's not ego, that's embodiment. That's what happens when obedience meets fire. You're not just stepping into destiny, you're becoming undeniable proof that grace still chooses unlikely vessels and fills them until they overflow. So don't let this be just another message you forget tomorrow. Let it brand you. Let it mark a before and after in your soul. And if this word pierced you, if it stirred something so deep you can't quite name it yet, then don't just sit with it. Respond. Share it. Speak it. Let someone else feel what you just felt. Because this isn't just about you anymore. It's about the ones watching your transformation in silence, praying for a sign that it's still possible to rise from the ashes. Be that sign. If this message found you at the exact moment you needed it, don't scroll past. Share this with someone whose spirit is ready to rise. Drop a yes in the comments if you're done shrinking and ready to carry what heaven placed inside you. Heaven's not waiting anymore, and neither should you. This is your becoming.